Okay, we're back for round two. I produced the last video with interior example in mind, and I wanted to take you guys through an example of an exterior that needed a lot of work. This was a building I photographed 3 times this past year in Calgary. It's the it's for the Calgary Stampede. It's their convention center, big sort of arena building. And our first visit was in May of 2024, and this was the state it was in. It was not complete yet. We had to move so many mountains on this shoot, and the amount of work we did was pretty astounding. But the the press release was happening kind of first week of June for the building, and they needed images. They had to have something. So we we made the most of the situation. A lot of the times in this field, you don't get what you would prefer, which is a perfectly polished building that's ready for you. You have to be ready for it, whatever that means. So, I mean, it was a holiday this day in Canada, and we had to call people until we could find somebody to come in and move 3 lifts that were parked underneath this canopy that's above here, just to get this shot. This is a very important shot. You can see the building isn't actually finished. They were still installing these metal pieces here underneath the canopy. There's missing ones we're going to have to repair. There's, a bobcat or whatever you want to call it, a skid steer here that we, couldn't get moved. So we're going to have to fix that. Lighting wasn't balanced yet. There was a lot of things that just weren't ready. So we're gonna take that image to, this is what I delivered here. You'll see a large difference between the two. Fixing all of those problems, dealing with glare issues, balancing color temperatures. We also had to shoot this on the day that we had. We didn't have the luxury of, postponing because of weather, things like that. So we had a very overcast, heavy day. It was pretty rough for the exterior photography, but we did get a couple little weather windows. But at dusk, we had this sort of heavy overcast, which made for a very gloomy sort of sky and less reflectance on this metal back here than I would have preferred. So here are the raw files here over in Capture One. I have already processed and through a couple alts. Alts are what I call, alternate exposures, exposures from the same tripod position that I then, move forward with in Photoshop and use either parts of them or what have you. So I've actually made a variant of this file here. If you clone variant, it'll just give you an additional copy of your file. So, you can work on it without affecting the other file and then produce them separately while comparing them to each other. So I've essentially just cooled this file down a lot to give me a duskier sky back here. And then I photographed this with this Canon 17mm lens, which I don't have a way to polarize. This front element is a spherical, so it sticks out beyond the end of the lens. So, and I didn't have, there are ways to solve this problem. There are filters like these Lee filters here. I could have used a polarizer. This is a graduated neutral density filter, but there are systems in place, but I didn't have it with me at the moment, so I couldn't solve this problem other than holding a polarizer over the problem area in the image, okay? So where this huge glare is from all the lights down here, I wanted to be able to mitigate that. So I did alternate exposures where I literally held the polarizer touching the front element of my camera or of my lens to mitigate the glare. Again, it's photography. There's no rules. If you can make it work, it's fine. No one who's ever seen this photograph has asked me, what happened up here, because it registers right. Everything looks correct. It would have been the same effect as if I had a polarizer floating in front of the lens. So that's part of the beauty of it. Let me jump back to the raw files quick. I think that was pretty much it. Let's jump into the retouching here, and we'll get started. I will, yeah, walk you through here. So I've named our alts. I've got my polarizer alt here. I've got my sky alt here, and I've got my I've made another alt that's a color correction alt. So essentially, I didn't love the cyan blue light that was cast on this receding part of the building. So I made another alt where I warmed the building up to another color temperature and produced it so we can grab that part and drop it on. I've grabbed one mask from my other file here because I don't think there's a lot of benefit in you guys watching me trace contours forever, right? So we'll start by doing our color correction layer here, right? So again, it's a pretty quick operation there, just making a different version of your file with a different color temperature, and then dropping those pixels over the others that aren't what you feel correct. But it makes a large difference, right? Now we feel like we have uniformity all the way down, especially once we get this polarizer on here, and we lighten up the underside of this canopy, give it some tone over here. You'll see I kind of cut a little bit of shape into this sweeping corner feature here. So let's start. This is one of the more intense productions of the year, primarily because we had all this stuff to repair, and then we're gonna have to go in and really look at some other problems together as well. So let's use a luminosity mask to a channel to deal with this sky. So I'd like to make a nice accurate sky selection. So I'm going to look for contrast within my channels in order to, rather than tracing all the way around all these little elements of the building here, which I could do. It would just take a long time, and we're here to save time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm going to click on my RGB channel over on the right side here under the channels tab. Then I'm going to click through my channels. So once I have the RGB channel selected, I can click on the red channel. And I'm looking for contrast between my sky and the building and the things, in the background back here. So this is essentially no contrast, right? We've got gray, we've got gray, we've got gray. We've got lighter parts interacting with darker parts, and darker parts interacting with lighter parts. Not going to help us. So let's check out our green channel. Better. Okay, right? We have got a better amount of contrast here, but it's still not the best it could be. I'm hoping the blue channel is going to give us more contrast, since the sky is blue and the building isn't. Beautiful. Okay. The sculpture here, this beautiful water droplet sculpture, which was really impressive in person, is going to require some manual masking, but that's okay. So what we'll do is we're going to duplicate this channel. Okay. So we can name it blue copy or whatever we want. You can, if you're going to make a bunch of these, we could call it sky mask, whatever you want to do. All right, so now we're going to, it's a little tricky here. We can't just click on the channel. I mean, we could, yeah. So we're just going to go back to the RGB channel, which sort of resets everything, and then click on that channel. And it's going to give us give us a look at that copy of the blue channel. So now all we're going to do is, without making any selections yet, look at this flare we have here. This is interesting. It's something I would have never even seen without tabbing through my channels. That's interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to bring up the curves on our channel here. So that's Command M if you're on a Mac. And we're just going to edit the curves so that we have more contrast even now than the sky, than we have between the sky and the building. So we're going to we'll try just doing it sort of a normal S-curve first, and then we might actually grab the heel and the toe anchor and edit those so that we have closer to white and closer to black. So I'm going to just drag this top anchor here, so we start to get some true whites up here in the sky. You can see it's getting rid of some of the you know, definition that we have between clouds. We just want to let this sky kind of go white. I'll do the same thing. I'll bring this black down a little bit, start to move this down. We don't want to go crazy with this, but we want it to be, yeah, we want it to be pretty dramatic, okay? So we'll start there. Now I'm just gonna essentially delete the rest of this image by just taking a selection, right? I don't have to be super exact with it unless there's a reason to be, right? Like I don't want to leave these little triangles in, so I'm gonna just be a little closer there. Here I'm gonna get a little closer, just so I'm not leaving like this little light in, things like that. We want to turn the rest of this mask black so that we're not using any of it in the selection. Here I'm just gonna leave this whole sculpture in for now, and try to close the mask. Okay, or close the selection. So now that the selection is closed, I'm going to invert it, and I'm going to delete everything else. Okay, so now we've got a very nice, clean mask where it's giving us all these little indents between the panels, these little reveals, right? It's done a lot of, this is something you can do with when you're not explaining it to somebody on YouTube in 30 seconds or 15 seconds, right? So even now, let's just look at what happens if we take this sky mask and we apply it to our blue channel, right? So we've already got a very nice sky drop in. It's saturated this quite a lot because of all the extra blue, and it's also made some weird effects happen here. So now we can just go in and we can brush it away, you know, in a painterly way. So we'll take a brush here and a nice soft brush. We'll take it at maybe 10% flow. Maybe I don't know if you guys know the difference between opacity and flow, so I'll explain it. I almost always use flow when I'm using a brush rather than opacity, except in very limited circumstances. So flow, every time you pass your mouse across the screen, it's going to lay down 10%. 10% of your you know, density, right? So 10%, you go back 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, all the way up, right? So if we changed it to 100% flow and 10% opacity, you'd think it would do the same thing, right? On the first pass, it does 10%, right? But each consecutive pass does nothing more. The opacity is going to give you a uniform amount of tone being laid down until you release your mouse button and then re-click, right? So if we want to go up to 50% opacity, we would release, click again, release, click again, release, click again, release, click again. So to me, I will always want it to feel more like I'm shading with a marker, right, rather than with this sort of digital tool. So I'd rather have it be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we can get rid of that, and then we'll just go in and start again with 10% flow. We'll start to brush black over the top of our mask, and we'll knock some of this weird artificial looking stuff happening out. I kind of want to just get rid of it completely from the bottom of this frame. So again, I'm just going to take a big soft brush and start to brush away at the sky here, and I'm fine with the horizon going a little bit more warmer. That's fine. And we're just going to brush it away a little bit from the kind of edge where this cloud is. It's looking a little too saturated blue to me. I might now just dial this whole thing back. I wasn't sure how much blue tone I was going to want, right, for this dusk. It's looking a little bit artificial to me. So I'm just going to take this entire layer and just start to dial the opacity back on it. until I feel like it looks right. Okay, so yeah, just taking 15% of it away. We still have tone, we still have modeling. It looks real, it looks like a nice dusk. We don't have these weird, super saturated parts down here anymore. That looks fine to me. So yes, so now we've got our color correction layer, our sky layer here, and we're starting to get somewhere, right? So the last thing we're gonna do before we start doing any retouching where we're editing pixels is we're gonna deal with this big bad polarizer layer. So here we're gonna need to put up the safeguards that I mentioned in our last video, our sort of bumpers, if you will. So I'm just gonna draw a little, I suppose I could just use the selection for this part of it that we just made with the blue channel, but I'll just draw in this corner because we're gonna wanna extend it far beyond the bounds of where that blue channel was. All right, I'm just gonna open that to the whole part that we want to edit. And now we're just gonna turn on our, I made a mistake here. So if you ever draw a selection and then you wanted to have a mask made, but not a mask of your selection, you can just make a new layer, drop the layer mask on it, and then you can go ahead and make a, so I've made a fully black overlaid mask over the polarizer layer, and now I can just re-grab my selection from that empty layer you made, and then you can just delete it. So now I've made a selection without applying I've made a mask without applying the selection to it. So now I'm just gonna start to wipe in white at 10% at a time to start to brush away this, this glare that we have here, right? So we'll take white and we'll just start to brush away. It's sort of like magic, right? Let's see how good this mask is. Yeah, I'm fine with it fading a little bit. I also timed this orange, the metal here is perforated and it has LEDs and panels behind it. So they have all these sort of animated, you know, fire, whatever you want to call it, light motifs that wash across this thing, and I wanted it to feel very warm and orange. So I timed my polarizer captures for when the parts that were underneath the glare were looking their best. So we get rid of some of the magenta white sort of areas that we had before we rush that in. So again, fixing that, quote unquote, fixing it right, without this would have been, I would say, nearly an impossibility. It would have been hours and hours of trying to skew other panels on and invent new perforation panel patterns that would have made this very difficult. So again, a very quick little move here, and it's starting to look very nice. I'm gonna fix this little there that's orange now as well. I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at here. So already we've made a big improvement in this shot. Now we need to start the nitty-gritty here. We need to start to fix all these panels and flares and all the things. So now we're going to make a new transparent layer here, and we'll start doing the retouching. One other note here, it's easy to forget that you have made these channel copies, and it's fine to leave them there until you're done using them. But it's smart to delete them before you go through saving your images, because depending on how you're flattening your image versus merging visible, sometimes these things get left behind and they actually have an effect on how a TIFF is previewed. So if you leave these behind, Windows or Mac, depending on how the TIFF is being previewed, it'll make for weird transparency problems on the TIFF. So it's best practice just to delete these before you go out and save the image. I'm gonna delete it now so I don't forget later. Probably smart to leave it until the very end, but we're gonna just kill it now for example purposes. So now we're just gonna start fixing fixing panels here. So we'll start with this one. We're going to trace it in, and we're going to be doing a lot of clone stamping here today, because we are replicating panels that have patterns. I'm not going to worry a terrible amount about each little nuanced panel edge being exactly right, because it's so dark, right, that as long as we've made the panel look uniform, we're not gonna notice that there's not on one of these tiny little reveals, right? You have these little grooves and things on the edge of it that are going to be hard to duplicate in a reasonable amount of time, and they're just not going to affect the final image. So yeah, so I'm just going from one side to the other, brushing up to make sure I cover the whole panel. We're just going to zoom out, lose it, and then look back and see if we can find it. So yeah, it looks like we've made the edge of this panel. Oh, sorry, I have it behind my camera. That might happen sometimes, and I'm sorry if it does. The edge of this panel is just a little too bright for my liking. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave just a tiny edge on it, but again, I'll just throw up a bumper and go back in and knock some of that lightness out so it's not calling attention to itself. There. Now it has a nice edge without being screaming like, hi, I'm different than the rest of the panels, right? I see that when I cropped this, I cropped it very intentionally to maximize my vertical space, but it looks like I left about 30 pixels of sky outside of the corner there. So we're gonna kill that, and then we're gonna jump down here like 1,000,000% and start to deal with these panels, huh? I'm gonna select these two at a time because I can see that I have an issue with my this corner as well. So we're gonna ignore the left void first, and we're just gonna fix the right panel, and then we're just gonna remove the right panel from the selection and go from there. So there's a lot of different ways we can do this. We can make up panels, we can just clone from the panel nearest by. It kind of, this foot is curving, so I tend to not clone from the immediate proximity to the panel that you're doing, because it's going to be a little more obvious. I like to take information from multiple panels, right? So I'm taking the second to the left, I'm taking the left side of that panel, and then I'm taking some information from the third panel down. For the rest of it, we're just going to kind of build this panel out until it looks real. I still want it to be modeled like the rest of these are. I just don't want it to look exactly the same. Repeaters are the fastest way to alert everyone that you've done a bunch of heavy-handed retouching. So I don't even remember which panel it was, if it was this one or this one, so that's good. It's good. This looks like something had been uninstalled and reinstalled or something like that. We'll fix this. Lots of little spots here that we need to make look right, because when I came back here in July, none of these issues were issues, right? These were all just mid-construction issues, and this is just us doing a solid for our client, showing them that we care about the project that we're working on and we want it to look as good as possible. I also agreed to do this. It was part of the deal with this shoot, is that it was going to be in a state of relative chaos, and we were just going to have to make hay while we could, so to speak. And that was fine with me. I like a good challenge, as long as it's not impossible. This shoot had a very interesting subplot, which was that when we were doing the interiors this day, we were on site here for many hours, as you can imagine, for the whole day, and from dawn to dusk. So maybe it was May, so it's probably 6 or 5:45 a.m. until until 9 p.m. something like that. Somebody had set I don't know, some sort of a fire alarm off inside, and for whatever reason, since it was a holiday, nobody was on site to be able to disable that alarm. So for literally 10 hours while we were working, we had a huge blaring fire alarm happening. Building wide, even outside the building, it was audible because that's how these things are. It was no one's favorite thing by the end of the day, I tell you that. We were all a little bit over it in terms of our sanity, but those things are easy to forget about once you've given yourself a little space from the photo shoot, and you have just nothing but good photos to remember the shoot by, right? So it looks a little bit bright to me. How do we want to mitigate that? Maybe with this panel at a really low amount of opacity. I know my line is going to start to creep off because it's a different it's a different part of this geometry. So okay, we've pretty well dealt with this area pretty quickly in a way that isn't detectable. So we'll head up here to this catastrophe next. I mean, what a puzzle this thing must be to put together, right? Every single one of these panels must be different, right? Since the whole geometry of the building is arcing and curving and rising and falling and twisting all at the same time. I can only imagine what a puzzle it must be. It's probably a little too bright. We'll try down here. Make sure we have a bright and then dark like that again. That looks good. We've maintained that facet that the panels have on some of them, right? Yeah, looks good. We'll deal with the pipes up here now. I'm probably not going to add any of these LED features to these panels. I'd rather them just be neutral. Oops, couldn't switch to zoom because I had accidentally started a new selection there. I'm just gonna copy this panel over for now, and we'll see how that works. Again, we're gonna have to do some editing specifically to the bottom edge because it creeps. It's bending. So, all right, getting there. Hopefully this is easy to follow along with here. We're closing on the end of this part, which is not going to be the most fun part of this video. To me, the most interesting part of this whole situation was the polarizer being so effective. I actually borderline couldn't believe it when I was in the field. I was with my my assistant. I think it was Andre who was with me, and we couldn't believe how incredibly effective the polarizer was, just holding it over the top of the lens like that. I've done this before, but every sort of situation is a little different when it comes to a polarizer. When sometimes you actually have reflection, and sometimes you have glare, and sometimes the polarizer causes more problems than it solves, and sometimes it just destroys the problem like it did here. So we were very pleased with that, as was my client. Okay, looking pretty good. One more that I see here, and then we're going to deal with a bunch of these temporary hook. They had these sort of scaffolding hooks on the bottom, or whatever they were for stabilizing while working, so we need to remove those. This is going to be a tricky one. We might just make this panel up. We're going to just use two different colors here. We're going to use a brush. We'll just take a color from nearby here, and we will brush the color in. It's going to look bad at first. What? didn't switch to brush for some reason. My apologies. Okay, we're just gonna brush in a color, and then we're going to cut this panel diagonally. I better give it a little more modeling than that. Hey, can't be lazy here. We want it to sort of feel like it matches the areas around it. Okay, now we're gonna cut a diagonal slice out of that. Let's see, the diagonal slice would probably go up to, like if you extended this line and this line, it would probably meet somewhere in here. So we're gonna take away that part, and then we're gonna make this slice lighter. So we'll use that bit there. Darken down the kind of edges of it, make them feel like they match a little bit. That feels pretty good. Yeah. So we're going to duplicate this out of the group because we need to do a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate that so that now it's its own little piece here. And we're going to select it first. We're going to model it a little bit more, and then we're going to add noise to it. This is something that's very important to do when you're doing this sort of manual brush work. The image is going to look off if it doesn't have, or that part of the image is going to look off if it doesn't have noise in it. It's going to look like, you know, just faked. I'm just doing some little random modeling in here just to make it feel a little bit more like the ones around it. And now I'm going to filter noise, add noise, and we will zoom in on it a little bit here and just try to match the amount of noise to the, trying to just decide if we want uniform. Yeah, that looks about right. Yeah, that looks fine. Just want to make sure that you don't have a noisy image with natural camera noise, and then you have a part that has no no noise whatsoever. It's just gonna look fake. This guy missed one up here. We'll go knock that out next. Just gonna take this panel. Oops. We're gonna make sure that we're back on the proper layer here. Okay. Looks fine. Very good. Okay, I think we've got a repaired ceiling. I'm going to merge those two layers now so that they're, you know, we don't have one little tiny panel floating. Now we're just going to knock out these little temporary connection points, whatever you want to call them. Another thing that, you know, was gone after construction, if I remember correctly, and they're not doing anything for us in the image right now. Reducing visual noise is going to help the eye move in a way that you want it to through the image, right? You don't want the eye to be like, what is that little thing? What's happening here? I need to make sense of this, right? You want to let your eye rest on the image in a way that's natural, comfortable, and also, you know, you don't want the viewer focusing on one little tiny thing and wondering about it. You want them to take in the image in its full power, right? Start to clean up some of our flare issues. There was a camera going in here, I believe. I even remember taking this camera out in post-production after my shoot there in November, our third shoot there. Starting to look pretty good. Ah, missed one. Okay. We'll call that fine. I know there's a little bit of glare and flare issues that are happening down along the ground. When I delivered this, I went ahead and dusted the heck out of this ground. I took out all these little flags. I cleaned up the dirt. They were supposed to have the sod in for us during the shoot, and they didn't in time, which I'm not going to add fake grass in. I'm just going to remove all these little flags that the, you know, whatever contractor that was doing underground plumbing or whatever had put in. I don't need to see those. They're not helping us. But yes, the whole point of this tirade is that I am going to skip some of this cleanup for this video because you guys get the picture and I don't need to waste your time dusting tiny pieces of gravel off of pavers. My camera in this shot is pushed. We had to move a construction fence back 10 feet. We like shuffled it all along and made like a big V so that the camera could just get back enough to get this view in. So that gives you an idea of why I am where I am. I can't remember why these poles were supposed to be white and have just a guard, or I mean, just, you know, be normal, but for some reason they were all wrapped in yellow tape. I think we fixed that in the image as well. Some of these are really bad, and I don't even know if I can proceed without taking them out myself here right now. So we'll just knock a couple of these back to the way they should look, which is not orange and yellow. Geez, slow down. Just take out the two orange ones and then we can just remember we would definitely take the yellow ones as well. This is getting complicated with the stairs, so I'm just going to go ahead and make myself a little outline to retouch within. It's one of my favorite things to do. Makes me happy every time. Okay. You are fine. Trash cans. Skid steer. How did we mitigate that before? Look at that. Look at that nice job we did. Should we do it? Let's do it. All right. So we'll give ourselves a bounding box here, a barrier, bumper bowling. So we just need to invent a new tree, parking lot, what have you. You know, the viewer really has no way of knowing what's back here. We just don't want to make it look exactly the same as another part of the image. I'm going to go ahead and decide where this ground plane should be. Probably around here. I'm going to put a tree in it. We're just going to start by grabbing a exact copy, okay? And now we're going to randomize it a little bit more. So I'm really okay with, let's take out some of these red boxes. I'm having a existential crisis on how we want to do this, but we'll just start by actually changing the pixels here to make these two parts of the image feel a little different. And I think we're even gonna maybe take a little bit of a second tree and add it to this tree so that the trees don't read as the same tree repeated twice. This requires likely a little bit slower method here. We're gonna come back to it though if we need to. All right, yeah, let's take some of this second tree. Yeah, and we'll add it to the first tree here so that we create a hybrid between the two trees where we start to feel like we have, how far does this go? It goes out here. It's going to feel like we're starting to have two different trees without it feeling like, you know, we've just made a literal duplicate of one. And if we do it in a random enough way, it should appear to the eye like you know, oh, it looks like there's half of a tree that I've seen before in here. So, you know, maybe this is a little bit of a red flag, this little, sorry, wrong tool. I had clone stamp. I should have had the remove tool. We'll just trim a couple branches off of this tree. This is looking a little funny up here. We'll turn it back to blue. Okay. So that now feels like we have three distinctly separate maple trees. Not sure what they were. Maybe poplars. I don't know. Yeah, we don't have any of those red cones behind it. We removed that car. I think that probably looks very acceptable. This grass, which is dirt in this image, did actually penetrate all the way through off to the left side there. So I think that makes sense. So now we're going to start cutting in shape. Yeah, let's do that. We're going to leave the trash cans. I'm sure I took them out. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely did. I took the trash cans out and cleaned up some other things, but we're going to start dealing with this metal, okay? So first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut in shape at this descending line. These 2 feet of the overhang here weren't necessarily round. They were these interesting shapes where they kind of transformed from being round to being polygons. They were really quite beautiful. I'm sure that this work is viewable somewhere if you look up BMO Center at the Calgary Stampede. You could probably see more of the photographs. So I'm going to brighten up this side here, but I do want it to start to feel round down here, but I want it to have this nice crease up higher. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to brush a little black onto this bottom to brush a little bit away so that it starts to fade from being, you know, from round to having this kind of square edge. It's fine. I like that. The whole thing could lighten a little bit and it could warm a little bit. I might just do that with a quick mask here, just brushing in, just not getting too close to my edges. I don't really need to lighten or warm the red down here. That part had much more direct light on it, and I don't need to add to that. So we'll just take that mask and we'll start to brighten that up a little bit, give it a little life, and then I want to add a little red and a little yellow to it. Definitely not too much yellow because I don't want it to feel like it's contaminated with, you know, street light underneath it or anything, but it should have the feeling of the metal beyond it, right? It has this sort of warm red mottled tone. I want it to feel like it's in the same family. So it's feeling better? Yeah? Okay. So beyond that, we should perhaps take a little bit of the blue out of the bottom. Not a lot. You're going to see throughout this series, I'm probably going to be doing these moves like this where I'm wrong move here. I don't need a curves layer. I need a hue saturation layer. I'm going to desaturate probably my blues and my cyans by maybe 10%. Let's just try that. Blue and cyan by 10 to 13%. Okay. So, you know, I don't even know if you can see the difference here in the YouTube video, because I know that the color color rendition isn't exactly perfect, but it grounds me a little bit, right? Now it gives me separation between my sky, my ground, my warm tone above. Yes. Okay. The next thing I want to do is give myself a little more shape up here. We got to get rid of this light. It's killing me. We're just going to start here, let Photoshop do most of the work, and then we're going to come back in and clean it up like we absolutely have to. The remove tool is a great starting place a lot of the times, not all the time, but yeah, you got to fix its problems that it creates for you. All right, so where was the seam? Right there. I'm just gonna float my finger over the screen there so I can, yeah, okay. One more time. Okay, so we want a line about here descending through and we'll fix this one over here. Utilize a little bit of the color from the left. Duplicate down so that we don't run out of pixels to work with, and that should do it. A little bit of modeling there, but in the scheme of this shot, it is visible. We'll try again. Yep. Okay. Yeah, feeling better. Yeah. All right. So that's fine. That's not. This is the thing, you guys. You just go on and on and on and on and on forever. I think this is an uncharacteristically, retouching heavy image for me, including taking out this giant flare here, which maybe we should do now. I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. I don't really like to work this way where I'm retouching and then I'm doing color things, but let's try to kill this thing. Mistakes. Okay, let's try to kill this thing here. So I'm going to start by just taking individual rays out and see how the remove tool handles that. Okay, that's fine. That's a start. We want to leave as much information as we can that the remove tool can, work around. So we want to use, skinny brushes. We want to make sure we're only taking out just the rays themselves and leaving the blue sky around them so that it has things to learn from. Really don't want to go into this at a highly nuanced level. That looks great to me. Okay. This is all the easy stuff. This is going to be the hard stuff. I'm okay with this one, but this mega solar flare that we have that's going to cause the northern lights to arrive is not what we want. Looking right at us. This thing was too high for us to block with a black card or anything, and we tried. We asked engineers and things if they could turn it off, but they didn't have control over it. Again, it didn't help that it was a Canadian holiday. I don't remember which holiday it was. In May? It's like the Queen's Day? I don't know. I should know. My neighbors to the north. Okay. Looking better, still very problematic, right? So now we need to go in with the clone stamp and start to get our eyes, which are far better than the AI's understanding of this image, because we know what we're rebuilding. We're rebuilding sky, or we're rebuilding cloud complexity. And we're running out of real estate fast to clone from. We're lucky we've got this little area over here. Yeah, okay. Let's see how it looked in the, yeah, I knew it. I see. So I ended up giving us a way to resolve this was using a second smaller light, right? Which I'm okay with. I don't mind that. Let's take that strategy again. Then it makes sense that we have this sort of washed out part of the sculpture here, right? I'm gonna get rid of this little pole behind it. Makes sense that we've got this washed out pole part of the statue because we have bloom here. We have got some flare coming straight off of that light. Makes sense to me. Okay, we're gonna give it a little bit more of a proper stem, if you want to call it that. The light pole here. There. Okay. I'm okay with it, I think. Yeah, wow. I mean, what a difference it made, right? Still need to clean up this bit of the flare that was on this part of the metal again. I think we're pretty happy with that. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, so the next thing I was going to say is I'm going to pull my color correct mask, this one here, and I want to give us a little more shape, a little more brightness. I might start out with just a single curve that's on that and just give it a little brightness. Yeah, okay, I'm okay with that. Now I'm going to make a secondary one and glow up this bottom volume a little more. So we're just going to take that same selection again from our color correction layer, and we're going to delete the top volume of the building out of it, right? This whole sweeping section. Okay, so now we have a selection for just this bit, and we're gonna make another curves layer and brighten up that part just a little bit more, just to give us a little more shape. It pulls us back it gives us a Terminator, you know, like it's the brightest part of my image is now in the middle and the back. It's pulling me back through. Look at the transformation. It's huge. Almost every bit of this image has been worked on here. I might take a little bit of yellow out of our stairway here, and the lighting inside. Again, it's going to be a very subtle move here. We'll pull the yellows down maybe 10% just to clean it up a tiny bit. Yep, almost imperceptible, but helpful. I might come down to 15. Let's try that. Yeah, helpful. Again, I would take out those little yellow feet, but that's fine for now. Okay, we're close. Let's see how close we are actually to the original. Yeah, we're close. I definitely took a little bit more liberty in the shape of the building. I might actually kind of like that. Here, this move, it looks like yeah, let's do that. Okay, so we're gonna use the existing mask a third time now, and we're going to remove the bottom section, which I know I can do by removing, you know, we just made a selection for the bottom, so I can take the overall, remove the bottom section from it. We're gonna throw it into quick mask, and we're gonna start to brush away this comet tail as it is, and just I'm gonna give myself a very soft little you know, a soft selection for I'd like to make it look like this is reflecting the brighter sky back here, right? So I'm just gonna start to brighten this up a little bit. I think I turned that selection off. Yeah, I did. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna keep brightening it up. We might add a little bit of blue to it. Yeah, there's a little yellow in there. Let's do that. A little blue. Gives it the illusion that it's reflecting a brighter part of the dusk. That's nice. That gives us even more shape, right? You've got a curving building that's reflecting like a concave mirror, right? Huge difference. I mean, you know, again, almost every part of this image has been touched now. It's looking a lot more like the building felt to my eye while I was there. We might stop there. Again, there's more things I would delete here, but it's not gonna teach you anything new, right? Where we can take out trash cans and things like that. Why don't I jump back over to the original image that I delivered? I do sort of wonder if I was a little heavy-handed on my left side over here. I kind of like the softness of this panel. I think we've done a better job the second time around. Not under pressure of a deadline and with more time between the building, you know, being at the building and now. I'm not trying to match what I think I saw as much, and I'm making an image that feels just like a better image to me. It's very close. I mean, it's subtle differences, but yeah. So that's a heavy lift. That's a heavy lift on an exterior retouching job. I didn't have people to drop in on this one, which I do on almost all my exteriors. But this was a construction site, and we were again under deadline. I would really love to have put some people, you know, so their heads are up on the balcony, people looking out the window, some people walking up and down the stairs, you know, somebody sitting in here, some people milling around back here. That would have been a perfect world. We got plenty of other things done like that on our return trips. Again, this was just the first pass. So, you know, this was the building. This is what it looks like from the exterior. The overall in context of downtown Calgary. That's a drone view. So yeah, you can see. Actually, I think that's us standing there in this picture. There's the camera. We bent the construction fence back, and we're underneath here, prepping for the dust shot. You can see there's, well, I don't know if you can, but there's lifts. Just open this photograph. all the things we had to deal with. We had to move these lifts, we had to bend this construction fence. There's the three of us standing there. We had fences everywhere. We had to convince these guys to keep their lifts and trucks back here. There was just so many issues to deal with. What a building, what a project. It was just a pleasure to photograph this one. So I really enjoyed it. So again, I hope you learned something. This is part 2 in this series of Tom Harris retouching. the Tom Harris way, which is maybe not the best way, but it's the way I do it, and it worked for me. So I hope you learned something. We'll try to keep these going as long as I have momentum here. It's a good winter project. So thank you all for stopping by.